Hey guys, so Thailand has just changed its entry rules in like less than 48 hours twice. And so today we're going to talk what's going on and whether you can get into the country right now. A lot of people are stuck at airports. People don't know what the vaccine requirements are, and it's just a total crazy situation. So, how do we get here? If we take a look over here, this is the official announcement. They're trying to play it off like this has been the policy all along. But what actually happened has basically everything to do with China. By the way, this is a live stream, so if you guys have any specific questions, I'll try to answer anything that you guys have, and think about subscribing to my channel. So before we go through all the details, let's talk about some background here. So China has been in this crazy COVID wave. There's been hundreds of millions of people in just the last few weeks who have come down with COVID. Luckily, it's said to be a pretty mild strain, but still a lot of people are dying, and it's a really bad situation. Now, at the same time, the Chinese government decided that they would open up the country for the first time in 3 years. So all of these 1.3 billion Chinese people who have been stuck in China are finally able to travel again as of Sunday. So this got people in Thailand quite nervous. There's still a lot of folks here who are unvaccinated or are elderly. And so the initial response of the government was to basically reinstate this vaccine mandate. Now, let's not talk about what you think about vaccines. I don't want to see any comments about that. I'm just trying to give you guys the information here. So Thailand hasn't had a vaccine mandate since October, and there have been no checks since then whatsoever. And of course, tourism has flourished. In the last year, you've just seen a huge increase all over the place of tourists coming back into the country. Unfortunately, the way that they decided to do this ban, it was literally like less than 24 or 48 hours notice that they told the airlines. And so by the time the airlines, the travel companies, and the travelers all found out about it, everybody was super, super angry about it. And so at the very last minute, they realized how much damage this is doing to them. So, basic statistics here, China alone accounts for like a third of all visitors to Thailand. We're talking about a ton of money here, trillions of baht. And they were expecting 5 million in 2023, but if we go back to like 2019, there was like way over double or triple that number. So they didn't want to like upset the Chinese because they didn't want them to feel like they were being discriminated against. So that's why they decided, even though their real goal was to, keep COVID positive Chinese people out, they just put the ban back on everybody. But Bangkok is one of the biggest airports in the world. This is one of the biggest tourist destinations in the world. And there's, thousands and thousands of people coming from all over the world here every day. So this is basically how it went down. Even though they rescinded the order, and again, this is the official order from TAT that yes, it is official. We are not testing actually it says that they are testing, but they won't require vaccine certification. And we'll get back to that testing part a little later on. So what happened here is basically a bunch of people got stuck at airports. So like this guy that was flying out of Istanbul, there were 15 people that couldn't board. And here's another person who was flying out of Kuala Lumpur who was vaccinated, but didn't bring his cards with him. So he was not able to board as well. There have also been some stories online of, I guess Russia has lower rates of vaccination. So there were some reports of like one plane out of Russia, 50% of the whole plane was stopped from boarding. Now, this was really unfortunate because actually at the airports here in Thailand, there were absolutely no checks whatsoever. So, that's pretty unfortunate. Now, I don't want to sound too critical of the Thai government. Good on them for realizing their mistake and reversing it before it's too late. But honestly, a lot of stuff like this happens in Thailand. It seems like there's flip-flopping on a lot of issues that go back and forth, and it takes a while to really know what's going on. That's why it's so important that we do have, this official announcement now, so it's fine to come. So let's talk a little bit more about, first of all, about the current status. So one of the weird things that is really unsure so far is in some of the statements they've said that even though vaccination is no longer required, that a test on arrival will be required. Now, there is absolutely no information that's been given out as far as is that an ATK test? Is that a PCR test? Some of the Thai government statements have said PCR, but with this ridiculous amount of people coming into the airport every day, nobody really knows how they would even set up the infrastructure to do that. Will the test be at the airport before you're allowed to leave? Do you have to go get one off site within a day or two? And then we also don't know, if you test positive, is there required hospitalization, or can you just quarantine in your hotel? None of these questions have really been answered, but generally speaking, long-time Thailand observers like Richard Barrow here, definitely check him out on Twitter. They're basically saying that the testing requirement is probably a bluff, and we're going to need to see in the next few days and weeks if any of that is actually implemented. But again, given how badly Thailand's tourism and overall economy has been hurting over the last couple of years, now that they've realized how damaging this would be to the tourism, it's kind of unlikely that they're going to even do the testing. Just to put it in perspective, some estimates are a quarter of all arrivals here are unvaccinated, and some even higher from other countries like Russia. So that's thousands and thousands of people every day. Let us talk a little bit about what it means to be vaccinated in Thailand. So that means 2 doses, but there are a bunch of exemptions as well. Here are the actual vaccines that are on the approved list. So we have China's Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna. So it's pretty much the whole list. I mean, there's a lot of very obscure ones on here, the Russian one, and some of these ones I've never even heard of. So, if you are vaccinated with 2 shots of any type, you're probably going to be okay. Also, there is exemptions for children. So if you're traveling with anyone under 18, they're completely exempt from all of this, so you don't have to worry about that. Thai passport holders are also exempted, so you don't need to worry about that if you have a Thai passport. And also transfers are exempted. So if you're just laying over in Bangkok on the way to Indonesia or whatever, it shouldn't be a problem. However, there is this one last portion about health insurance that's really quite confusing. So the way it's worded is that you need $10,000 required health insurance if you are flying from or flying to a country that requires a COVID test to enter. That's pretty confusing. Again, this is like the Thai government's very subtle way of screening Indian and Chinese passengers very hard. Because both of those countries right now do have COVID test entry requirements. But if you actually look at some of the details of what other countries are doing, it gets even more confusing because it's not about your passport, it's about where you're flying from and flying to. So right now you've got the US, Australia, Canada, Japan, South Korea, and Malaysia, in addition to China and India, all also require some form of COVID test if you have been in China in the last 10 days, right? So if you're a Chinese person, or if you are an expat living in China, you fly to Bangkok just for a layover, or you're going to spend a week and then go on to India or the US or South Korea. The way they've written this, it sounds like the health insurance might be required. So luckily, let's take a look at the ASQ website. The health insurance is really, really cheap. So my recommendation to people is just to buy it. You know, you're already spending hundreds and hundreds on the plane ticket. You don't want to risk messing it up. So as you see here, like a 40-year-old American for 15 days of coverage is like $20. I've put the links to this in the description down below. Think about subscribing while you're there. But that's pretty much the best website that I've found. When I first moved here about a year and a half ago, I used the same website, and I think it's one of the better deals. Again, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave that in the live chat. I'll do my best to answer them. I want to talk a little bit now about healthcare in Thailand. It was really funny because the Thai government actually put out a statement that basically said, well, you know, if you end up being COVID positive here in Thailand, we have all these great private hospitals. And, you know, this is true. Like, this is one of the healthcare tourism centers of the world. There are lots of great public hospitals and also dozens and dozens of top-notch private hospitals that can take care of folks. So it's like a new business model for the country, I guess, like COVID, illness, tourism, medicine. I wanted to talk about a few specific hospitals. So if we look at this recent article from Thai PBS, you know, here are the best hospitals in the world, and here are the ones in Thailand. You know, these are just the top ones. And so let's go through these real quick, or a couple of them. Bumrungrad, I forget how to say that properly, but that's basically, you know, the most famous one that everyone goes to, that just, you know, if you Google best hospital in Bangkok, that's the one that's going to come up. Very highly recommended. Could definitely check that out. I wanted to also mention Semetovich. I personally had a family member. My wife had a, you know, procedure there. It's like 5-star, amazing hospital. It's right near the main expat part of town on Sukhumvit, near Thonglor and Prompong. It's really nice, and it's really not that expensive, even if you had to pay out of pocket. Also, Sukhumvit Hospital, have some experience there if you're looking for maybe a little more budget option that's still quite good. They're also right on Sukhumvit Road in central Bangkok, around, I think, Soi 70 or Soi 60, something like that. And they're quite good as well. And then finally, one of the other really famous ones on the list is Chulalongkorn. This is one of the other main ones that people like to talk about when they're talking about the best hospitals in Thailand. So real quick, that also brings up another issue, though, which is Princess Ba. So the Princess of Thailand, unfortunately, has been unconscious in Chulalongkorn Hospital for weeks now. And everyone's really afraid about the status of her health. This is a good segue into the current sort of situation in Thailand. What's the nightlife like? What's, you know, life like here? So the risk, if you are flying here anytime in the next month or two, is there is a chance that she unfortunately could pass. I mean, she's been unconscious for weeks now. And if that happens, there is a decent chance that a lot of things will be canceled, such as nightlife, especially, or big concerts, public events like that. It's fairly likely, looking at past deaths in the royal family, if she were, God forbid, to die, that could really impact your visit here, because a lot of things might be closed. So let's hope that doesn't happen. Assuming that doesn't happen, this is what Thailand is like right now. Compared to a year ago, things have really, really changed a lot. But you have to remember that Thailand, Bangkok itself is the #1 tourist destination in the world. It gets like 30-40% more visitors than Paris in 2019. So even though things have recovered a lot, the government is still projecting, I think, less than 50% of the people that were here in 2019 before COVID. That being said, while a lot of things are still closed, there's more than enough fun stuff to do here, and a lot of new stuff is opening up. I would say starting back in October, when the vaccine mandate was lifted, really is when it, started seeing significantly more travelers here. So it is interesting. The local Thais, I'd say if you go out in the daytime, 80-90% of them are still wearing masks. Now, if you're from parts of the US or Europe, that might be a big shock to you. I know, in the US and Europe, which I've both been in the last year, they pretty much, a lot of people stopped wearing them like a year ago. So expect that if you come here. However, it is not strictly required in pretty much any setting. So you can go on the subway without a mask. You can, I even went into a government building the other day, and a lot of people, foreign people, were not wearing masks at the immigration center. You can definitely walk around outside. If you go to the park, you will see more Thais who are exercising outside without masks. If you go to the mall, again, it's totally acceptable to not wear one, but most of the locals will be wearing one. So just get ready for that if you are heading here. The big exemption or exception to that, I would say, is like temples, and even like I tried to go to the zoo in Chiang Mai like a week or two ago, and you didn't need a mask for pretty much anywhere, but you needed one to go in and see the pandas. I guess they're really, nervous about the health of the pandas. So just little weird details like that. And I've heard that some of the temples, as well as wearing appropriate long clothing, no mini skirts, no crop tops, no, sleeveless tank tops. So once you get your attire right, you definitely are going to need a mask in a lot of temples as well. Now, the funny part is nightlife. The nightlife is pretty much normal. I guess it makes sense because anyone who's, willing to go out to a club at night, they're, probably younger. They're not as nervous about it. A lot of them had COVID already. So when you go out at night, almost nobody's wearing masks, and you're not going to be asked to go in anywhere. Most places are not asking for like ATK tests, definitely no PCR tests, but if you go back a couple of months, some events and things were still asking for ATKs. That still may be happening at select concerts. I think Def Leppard or Aerosmith, someone played here recently, and someone was complaining a couple weeks ago that they required an ATK to get in. But usually they have that for like $5 at the entrance anyways. And if it's positive, you're not like forced to go to the hospital or anything. So it's not really a huge deal. So nightlife is, I mean, it's pretty much popping off. There are fewer venues compared to 2019, but I mean, there's hundreds of places in Bangkok alone to go out at night. So there's plenty to do. I also went to the beach recently. I was out at Koh Chang. You know, beach areas, you're not going to have to worry about masks really. When you get outside of Bangkok, I find that you really notice the lack of tourism. It's definitely quite empty in a lot of places. So that's actually a really good thing. You have a lot of empty beaches and pristine areas to check out. So in that sense, it's really good to come here right now. Same thing with the jungles. I was just up in Chiang Mai, went up to like 3 beautiful hot springs, like out in the middle of nowhere, and they were mostly empty. So yeah, in that sense, really good time to come here right now. Although I should mention, if you're flying domestically within the country, flights are more expensive than average because of gas prices being so crazy in the last few months. But it's still, you know, like less than $100 US round trip to fly to Chiang Mai and back. The exchange rate's been interesting lately as well. So, you know, I think when I first came a year and a half ago, it was maybe around 32 or 33 to the US dollar. And then it really shot up, meaning the US dollar was worth a lot more. It shot all the way up to like 37 or even 38 for a couple of days. That was like maybe a month or two ago. But now it's sort of stabilized again now that tourism is reopening, more money is flowing back into the country. So we're sitting around like 34 baht to the dollar right now. So it's still pretty cheap. And again, like a lot of hotels, not just outside of Bangkok, but even in Bangkok itself, they're way below occupancy. So, you know, a lot of restaurants went out of business and a lot of bars went out of business, but hotels are so big, they sort of had to weather the storm. So most of them are still around and they're quite empty. You can get really good deals. And then as far as nearby countries go, a lot of them you can, easily travel to. Let's talk about visas for a second, right? So as part of that announcement, they made visa exempt countries. So let's take a look at that real quick over here. So visa exempt, that's most of Europe, UK, United States. They actually increased the stay to 45 days. So if you're an American, you can just hop right on the plane and come here. You literally don't need anything. Same thing for most of you Europeans, with the exception of Malta and a couple of small countries. And then after that, we have the visa on arrival people. So that is, Chinese, Indians, who else? Taiwan is also on the list. So that has also been increased from 15 to 30 days, so which is really, really convenient as well. Let me take a look over here real quick. No questions so far. I'll probably wrap this up pretty soon. I think the overall takeaway message is just, it's a great time to come here. And I would buy the insurance just to be safe. I mean, even without all the, COVID stuff, like paying $20 to have traveler's health insurance is a really good investment. But aside from that, within a day or two, all the, different airlines should know what's going on. You shouldn't have any problem at the airport. And take a look in the links down below for all my recommendations and the official announcement. And if you have any questions after the stream is over, you can leave those down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.